It is time for another episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. Appreciate you being here. If you're watching it live today, hey, hope you have some questions. Feel free to post them up there, your questions and your comments. And if you're watching this on the replay, we hope you're getting a lot of value because, to be honest with you, we're getting thousands and thousands of views on the various social channels that we are posting this broadcast to each week. So we appreciate you being there. And like I said, we hope that this is a time that is helpful to you, that gives you some processes, some procedures. Every week we try to go over something, and this week is no different. And I'm going to tell you what brought this episode up that we're going to do today. It seems like every time I look at social media, there's either a question about software and how do we do this? How do we do that? But the other side that I see is people that are just extremely frustrated, that are pulling their hair out because they can't make the software operate. They can't make it work right. So that's what today's episode is about. Why people have this type of problem with software, because I'm going to agree with you. Some of these new softwares, they are extremely complicated. I do mean extremely. In fact, there's a gentleman on here a couple years ago. His name's Josh. He's right there on the screen with me, and he was telling me something. And it was after I asked him, I said, Josh, why are you able to implement this software and not have the problem that other people do? And he said something that I still use to this day, because he said, Jerry, you got to understand, I speak geek. And when you look at it, it makes a lot of sense. So let's start out this morning with Brandi. Brandi, you see these comments that come up on social forums. You see people that say, hey, I bought this software and it ain't worth a hill of beans, but at the same time, it's working great for the other people. So as you see these, what thoughts come into your mind of why are people having such problems with their software?
Time and effort. I do not speak geek like Josh, but I'm definitely willing to put in the time. Oh, thank you, Chuck. I'm definitely willing to put in the time and the effort to learn the program. Let me give you an example. One that I have on my to-do list that I want to learn is Zapier. You can do so much with Zapier integrations. But I went in there one day to try to set it up myself, and I was like, yeah, Brandi needs an expert to get this set up. So I will hire an expert, find an expert, do whatever I need to. But that's going to have to wait till the spring because now we're in busy season. But when I see people making these comments on Facebook, etc., my heart goes out to that business, because as a business owner, I know that these people aren't taking the time to put into the program. They're not investing into learning the program. And guess what? And Josh and I both just got back from Pantheon, and they were talking about how technology, the way it's moving right now, is the slowest it's ever going to move. It's just going to keep getting faster and faster, and things are just going to keep getting more technical and more complicated. And so it's either you get on the boat or you drown.
Yeah. And it's often said, Brandi, that if you don't learn to use artificial intelligence for what's there, I mean, right before we went online, we were just talking a while ago, and the conversation was about using online scheduling, which you're experimenting with, and we've got clients that are doing it right now, but it's definitely something to be looking at. Josh, same question to you. You've watched this happening. You've watched people complaining. And now, since you've become affiliated and you're going through your Service Titan training as a certified consultant coach, and you're talking to people, why do they have so much problems implementing new software?
I can say from the price book side, um, it's the visualization of it. You need to get that 10,000 foot view before you try and drill down. I see a lot of people who start at the bottom without their plan. They just start putting stuff in, and like, well, you don't have your master plan. And so then you get all this stuff in, and you've spent hundreds of hours in it. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, now I can't use it because I never started with the visualization of what I was trying to accomplish. I just started throwing stuff in.
Yeah. So when you hear people complain, is it that is it this complicated that if you don't have, like you said some years ago to me, if you don't think like a geek, is it next to impossible for you to make this happen? I mean, is it beyond the capabilities of many people?
No, I think like I said, having that visualization of how things work and flow. Because one, like the big grill in the room now is Service Titan, and they're obviously geared for major trades, HVAC, plumbing, and they're also very geared towards flat rate. Um, Now, there's certain aspects of this industry we can do flat rate with. I have a huge flat rate price book, but masonry, um, that's not one you can flat rate. It's there's so many variables in there, um, and then so that's a tough one. But once you get a visualization, you kind of understand how you connect the dots, like the difference between services and materials. And even the way Service Titan thinks about what a material is versus what we may think about a material, because the material to them could be a 50-cent piece of pipe. Well, we don't have 50-cent pieces of pipe. We have $400 pieces of pipe, and you have to be able to adapt, because these are one fit all solutions, and you have to be willing to adapt to the what system you're using.
Yeah. So let's go over to Sheryl a minute. And there's something that a lot of people may not know. And Sheryl went to computer school before Josh and Brandi were born. Okay. Before they were born, when she got out of high school, she went to computer school. And at that time, computers weren't little desktops. These were rooms, and this kind of stuff. So Sheryl, you've been a person that's been able to adapt to a lot of new softwares. Even, we're not the youngest people on the block by far, but you have an innate ability to adapt to new things. So, why do you think so many people have this problem with software?
Well, first of all, I think one of the reasons I don't is because I'm mathematically inclined. I think that has a lot to do with it. 1 and 1 makes 2, and it always has, and it always will. So computers to me are common sense. But I think the biggest problem people have with it is not adapting to it in the beginning. It's that it changes every week. About the time you think you've got it in gear, you've changed. I mean, I went from my first computer would not fit inside this house. Now I have more memory on this thing than they had on that computer. So I've had to adapt just into the computers for years. I can only fathom what it's like with Service Titan because I'm not I've not used Service Titan. It doesn't work in my company. But I listen to these 3 guys all the time talk about it. And more than the setting up, a lot of times I hear, I just got it figured out and they changed it. So I think that's where a lot of our people are having huge problems adapting because they've adapted to getting it up. Now they have to readapt to the change. So these 2 could probably go a little farther with that than me, but that's what I'm seeing as an outsider.
Yeah. And one of the things that Skip Cresswell put up a while ago, and I'm going to put it back up, was that Service Titan rushes you through your setup, and then later you learn that you have to redo stuff. And one thing about Skip was very successful at implementation of Service Titan. But as you go into it, and this is one of the things that we try to explain to every client if they're going to go into software. These are not plug and play. It's not a matter of hooking up and this software now is going to do its job. You're going to have to go in and set up the system to your adaptation. And Brandi, this is one of your areas of expertise. So to set up this software, this CRM, how complicated is this for a new user? And we're talking Service Titans come up several times, and that's what you specialize working with. And so just how complicated is this?
I don't know that it's so complicated, as I do agree with Skip that they rush you through the process. So they do a 3 to 4 week onboarding, and you are in a group with other people and they're just showing you what to do. And then you're expected to take the time and go do that and meet individually then one-on-one with your onboarder if you have any questions. And I think it's just overwhelming for people. So that's why we kind of slow it down and go through setting by setting and make sure it's set up the way the company wants it to be set up. And I agree with Skip as well. He made the comment about, or and maybe it was you, Jerry, too, just talking about how you get it set up and then it changes. And that's true. I'll give you a great example. So Madison, our super user here at Flues Brothers, just did a presentation at Pantheon. I'm very proud of her. Shout out to Madison if she's watching. And Josh even said it was really good. And so when she made the presentation, the first time, custom windows, custom fields, and if you're not on ServiceTitan, this may not make a lot of sense. You had to have all the same custom fields for the job type. And then 2 weeks before it's time to go to Pantheon and present, they changed it to where you could have custom windows different for different job types. So she had to go in and redo those slides because the program changed. I love the changes because we were on a CRM prior to this for 8 years that never made any updates. And I think the updates are important. It's one of the things that I appreciate about ServiceTitan is they really take your ideas seriously. But again, you have to invest the time and energy. So I'll give you another example. So Madison was nervous to present. She's like, these are very basic things. And I kept telling her, yes, they're basic to you and I, because we keep up with the updates. But I promise you, they are not basic to everybody that's in that room. So as she went over each category, I told her to stop and ask people to raise their hand if they used that feature. Crickets.
10% maybe.
Yeah, 10%. Maybe some even less than that on these features. She had a line of people going clear back to the door after her presentation, asking her questions. Now, 2 people tried to recruit her away, so shame on them. But, and she's still getting contacted by people. And poor Madison, it was her first thing she's ever spoke at. She gave him her cell phone number. I'm like, oh, you never give them your cell phone number. You give them your email. But so she had all these people that were just in awe of these features. I had this really nice couple that I met. They've been on ServiceTitan since the beginning. Like they were on ServiceTitan when like the very first party was in the back of Vahe, the owner's backyard. And they're in water softener, water treatment, really nice couple. But they came up and were asking me all kinds of questions, and they didn't know about over half of these features, but they've been on the program a long time. But it's because they don't get into community. They don't attend the webinars when updates come out. So they're not keeping up with the software. And I'll go back to what I said in the beginning that they told us, and because I truly, truly believe it. And that is that technology right now is moving the slowest it's ever going to move. It's just going to get faster and faster and faster.
And Brandi, let me ask you a question. This is a quote from Brandi, and I'd like to make sure, and let's get this out. When you went through your training to be certified by ServiceTitan to do what you do, isn't it true that you told me that this was tougher than going through your nurse's training?
Yeah, and somebody sitting in this little virtual room with us didn't believe me, and now he believes me. We have to go, as a ServiceTitan certified provider, we have to go through more training than their new employees that are on the support desk. Like we go through more rigorous training, which it's good, right? It's a good thing. But yes, it was very, very intense and hard.
Yeah. So let's move over to that guy that thought you were telling him that it wasn't. He thought you were full of it. And Josh was just going to breeze right through this, remember? And now Jerry's having to push like, Josh, finish this up. You got to get it done. But Josh, what's your thoughts about what Brandi's saying? Is this the way it is? Is this where we got to be? You got to be diligent. You got to set it up right, but you have to be ready because this software is going to change every time you turn around. Am I correct?
It is. One of the presentations they gave was about AI and how they're using it. And the analogy they said the number of neurons that they had a year ago versus today, and it went from thousands to millions. Like this is how much evolved AI has had just in the last year with more when they gave it more computing power and more intelligence or writing or whatever they do to develop the AI. But he said it went from thousands of neurons to millions of neurons, and it'll be up to billions before we know it.
Josh, not to interrupt you, but do you remember what they said AI stood for? Because I loved that.
Automation, return on investment.
Yes,
Right.
I thought that automated ROI is so the A and the I at the end, automated ROI. I thought that was so genius.
Correct. And Josh, when you look at it, let's bring a real life story into this. Just this week, you have a client that you're working with that all of a sudden their forms are not working right. And you're telling me a while ago the reason was the HTML language isn't, and it's like, wait a minute, when you start talking this and the words you just used, that's beyond me. Okay. I made a determination a couple years ago. I don't need to learn this software. I'm not going to learn this software. That's what you two guys are for. Okay. It's like, hey, you got this software issue. That's what I got Josh and Brandi for. That ain't Jerry. Jerry works in other stuff. So, Josh, what's this problem that you're fighting right now that you've had to get an escalation with Service Titan on?
Well, even Service Titan, it's hard to believe, but they have multiple servers. And something may happen on one server that is only on that one server. So sometimes if you watch these forums, people will say they're down or they're having this issue or that issue, and it's not all across Service Titan. It may just be a glitch in one server. Yeah. So it may only be happening to 1,000 customers instead of 50,000 customers.
So it's kind of like being on a party line years ago, us older guys and gals, when we were little, we had a party line. So when you wanted to use the phone, other people were on that same phone line and you had to wait till they got off. So what you're saying is in the software world, they're sharing this server. So if you're on that server, it may be a problem. And see, this is the stuff that drives those of us who are not geeks up the wall. Is that what you're saying, brother?
Yep.
Yes, but Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a good thing that they're on different servers? Because if one server goes down, they can transfer things to another server, et cetera. It's like if there's a cyber attack.
And as my brother's a network engineer, so my understanding is you can have a complete exact backup sitting someplace completely else.
Yes, and I know in healthcare they do that. They have to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what Chuck has just brought up is excellent because this is one of the things. When people implement a new software, do you have a person on staff that's capable? Okay. Have you got a Madison like Brandi's talking about? If you don't have this person, just like Chuck says, Brandi, can you help me with what a CTO is?
Chief Technology Officer.
Okay. So you gotta, do you need a chief technology officer? Because that's what some of these large companies have. They do have that chief technology officer. I've never heard it called that. We just call it an in-house geek around here, but it's whatever. And luckily for me, my in-house geek sitting right here on this camera up there in the other corner. So that's who I call when it ain't working right. It's like, Sheryl, it ain't working. And bring me your computer or I'll be there. So that's how we work it out. So Sheryl, what's your thoughts as you're hearing Josh and Brandi talk about this?
I just see it the beginning of the issue instead of being the huge issue. As they say, this is just the very beginning. I mean, even AI can only do with what information it's got right now. And I actually had a doctor tell me yesterday that people are bringing in AI about their medical stuff. Oh, and she is freaking out. So they come in with their diagnosis. Okay. So, but as long as there's humans like Josh and Brandi that can filter through this stuff, I think it'll work. It'll happen and people can keep up with it. But just as Skip was doing, you've got to keep up with it. You can't, the thing is stopping only delays the problem. The problem's going to keep moving on. And if you miss a step, like again, I keep referring back to Brandi, because Brandi keeps up with the webinars and the classes and everything that goes on. I can only imagine, Brandi, if you missed 2 months of this, what would happen within this particular program.
Oh yeah, I'm behind on the features by then.
Yeah. And the thing is, she eats this stuff up, folks. I mean, really, if you want to know a lady that loves to attend podcasts and webinars and all that, that's her. She's into it. I mean, we're all the time getting this new book she's read, this podcast, referrals to that, of different things. And that's what we do here is we share that information amongst the four of us so we're fully informed. I know one of my areas is SOPs. And I listened to a webinar by another company yesterday, sent the link out to them, and look at the sample SOPs this company is doing. So, hey, it helps us because we learned to network with other people. But see,
So we are the CVC AI group now.
there you go. But again, and when you talk about AI, I don't know if y'all know it or not, but the first AI recording artist was just signed by a national record label this week, that they now have an AI singer under contract, believe it or not.
Wow.
Now, that's, if you remember right, one of our former guests, if you remember Wolf's really big into researching artificial intelligence. And I was on a meeting last night with Wolf talking about this because the conversation went to artificial intelligence, which is what software is. It is an artificial intelligence that does the thinking for so many people. But the thing about this software is it's going to give you so much management information in order to properly run your business. When you go to these organizations like this, and Brandi, you and Josh probably down at Patheon, you heard about how these large companies are using this software in order to see where their profit is, to grow their business and everything else. So is it worthwhile? Yes. Is it painful? Yes. In fact, when somebody talks to me and software comes into play, number one, we want to match a software with the size of their business.
Yes.
Okay. That's vastly important. And to be honest, you've heard Service Titan here. If you're a one-person business, don't even think about it. It's not what you need. There's better ones for you. Okay. But this is what I tell people. And I don't think a lot of people know this, but in your due diligence, you've got to be able to determine, what do you want that software to do for you? And what's it going to take for that software to do that for you? That's your important question. And that's where, and then are you going to be able to implement this yourself, to onboard it? Josh, you're working with people right now that have tried to onboard this on their own. And what's their results, brother?
It varies depending on the person. Like I said, I've seen some real horror shows out there. People that have been using it for years, I've seen some real horror shows because they never get that 10,000 foot, vision of what the whole thing is going to look like. And then one of the conversations I had when building out Pricebook was like, well, how do you go to market? How do you do your presentations? Let's drill down through the whole thing. It's not just throwing in a whole bunch of, parts and saying, okay, expect a technician in the field to do this. Well, if I'm asking a technician in the field to put together an installation, let's just say it's a gas insert. Well, hell, there's many combinations of stuff. And one of the things, the analogies they said if you use proposal templates, you're going to get an extra 5% in business. And if you're an $8 million company, that's $400,000 in extra revenue you're going to have just by building these pre-built estimates out. So you need to understand how do you go to business? You have to know so many things, not just throw a bunch of materials in there.
Yep. So Brandi, if someone is listening to us right now and they've gone through they're going through this frustration, I've got this software and it's driving me crazy, and they're telling everybody they can, this software ain't worth a crap. Don't waste your money. They're going to do this and that. Just get out of them. What would Brandy's response be to that person if you could have a face-to-face discussion with them?
I would say probably don't listen to that person because they probably didn't invest the time and the talent to learn the software. Again, all of this can be learned, but you have to invest the time. We had Chirp on here, I don't know, a month or two ago, and we had a lot of people sign up for Chirp. And then I've heard from a couple people, well, but it's not working or it's not doing it the way we want it to. We onboarded amazingly with them, but it's because we invested the time to meet with them and say, we want this campaign and this is the verbiage we want. And then they did it for us. We want this. Then we had another meeting. We want this campaign and we want the verbiage. And then they did it for us. But if you don't invest that time and you say you're always too busy, then it's probably not the right software for you. Just like you said, Jerry, I had somebody reached out. Service Titan will often send other chimney sweeps our way to have us tell them about our experience with the program, see if it's the right program for them. And I had a company reach out and they were only a 3-person company. One was the owner and was in the field. And I said, this is not the right program for you. You do not have the time to do this. And I referred them to Service Titan's competitor. Just met another chimney company. Josh and I had breakfast with them at Pantheon. Really nice people. I had actually never met them before. And they have a chimney company and they had switched to Service Titan from Service Titan's competitor. And I said, oh, that's so interesting because I hear people really like that program. Can you tell me why? Well, yeah, it just didn't do everything that they wanted it to do. So that program that they were using is much easier. It is more plug and play, if you will. It's much cheaper, but it didn't meet their needs. So now they're on Service Titan. It's about choosing the right software for you that you have the time to invest to learn it. There are other softwares out there that are much less complicated. So that may be something you have to look at.
Yep. And Jeremy Biswell, your husband, just mentioned there, we kept meeting until it was set up and working the way we needed to. It is a plug and play. And he was talking about Chirp, but that's the whole thing. Let me tell you something. When that lady right there is disappointed and you're the vendor, your life is hell because she is going to call you, question you. You're going to hold the vendor accountable. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And I'll give Jeremy props for this, but I just found out at Pantheon, Chirp was there and I was visiting with them and I found out one of the campaigns that we had them do with a certain tag they had never done. They actually had to write the program for it for us. And that was an idea that Jeremy had that's working really well for us right now. But we had to work with them and be a little bit patient because they actually had to write the code for it.
That was it. But the key thing was you didn't just run off and say it don't work. You communicated and came up with a solution. So Josh, same question to you. You read the Facebook post. You see the people that are saying this software ain't worth a crap or that one ain't worth a crap or whatever. What would be Josh's words of wisdom to that company?
So I internally, even in my own company, I find the people that are having the problems they don't read the error messages. They just get frustrated and they just go, well, it's broken. I'm like, well, did you read what the error message said? And it'll actually go through and it'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. You need to do this, 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 and this. And I find a lot of people just see error messages and they think it's, the old school of error message 14, and nobody knows what that is unless you were a Windows provider. They've gotten smarter these days. A lot of times it'll just tell you, or you can go in the help menu and you'll find the answer. And a lot of people just are lazy and they don't want to do that. They want you to do it for them. And they're not willing to sit there and learn and do it.
Or they don't even, I ran into people, Josh, they don't even know there is a help window.
Yeah.
They're using the program. They don't even know there is a help window. And the nice thing about Service Titan, and I know we keep talking about that, but that's because it's the program Josh and I are the most familiar with. They'll remote into your computer. I've had them on there and I've gotten frustrated with something. And I'm like, can you please remote in and show me? They'll remote right into your computer and help you fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
So Josh, here's my question to you. Where have you got a camera here in my office to watch me, what you just described? Because you just described Jerry to a T, because that's what happens. And like when it don't work, just fix it, Sheryl. I don't care why it don't work. Just fix the stinking
Poor
thing.
Cheryl. Poor
Yeah.
Cheryl.
Oh, yeah. Trust me.
Kind of like cutting his internet off the other day and wondering why it was slow.
Hey, yeah, I cut my internet off. I'm sitting down there for 3 days and I'm stealing her wireless and wondering why is my computer running slow? Okay, because she's got her service upstairs, I've got mine downstairs, and I'm hardwired into mine, but I turned it off at the power source. But Brandi, Jeremy has brought up another excellent point here. Now, you guys are in the chimney service industry, and September ain't the time to start this crap. You got to plan this out. Am I correct in what Jeremy?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm in a little bit of a pickle right now because I have a client who started onboarding late and I have another one who's having issues. And this is not honestly the time that I like to be onboarding and helping them, because this is the time they should be up and running efficiently for fall. I'll give you the perfect example of something Jeremy's talking about, though. So God bless him. Public shout out to Jeremy and to Tyler, our director of operations wife, because they ran the office last week or this past week while we were at Pantheon, which is not an easy task. And Jeremy realized what we've already known, and that is that most people do not want to call on that phone and book their appointments. They want to book directly from the web or the text. That's where the majority of our appointments come from. And for years, we've wanted an online web scheduler, but we've had a specific criteria, and that criteria is that we had to be able to charge the customer on the actual schedule engine, if you will. And we haven't been able to find a program that can meet that criteria. And now Jeremy's decided, well, we're going to have to bend if that doesn't exist, because we've got to go to this to meet our customers where they're at and how they want to schedule. But we're not going to do that until spring. That's our plan for the spring, because right now we don't have time to implement a new software and learn it. So we're going to fail. We wait till spring, we'll be successful.
Yep. And Sheryl, I think Chuck Roadhouse just hit an excellent thing. He said, but Jerry, that's because of your disc profile. So in actuality, does the disc profile of the person allow them to do this better than a person with another type of disc? That's an interesting question.
It does. I mean, Brandi's a high D just as you and I are, but we have chose different paths. So we've chose the knowledge instead of screaming at someone to do it. But yeah, your disc profile, that's why Madison's so good. And some of her girls are so good at what ladies are so good at what they do. Their that disc platform is perfect for what she has them doing. And she works with the disc to put them into the things that she knows they will do well.
Yep. And Skip just brought up another excellent point. He says, I spent most of my summer trying to implement adjustable capacity planning. Skip, I don't even know what that is, but I'll take your word for it. No one at Titan did much to help me. Once I finally got it set up, the schedule engine, online booking, and the live booking is not working right. They tell me now that everything needs to be remapped. And he's got another comment here. They both book appointments on the same day that are completely booked. So yeah, these are the problems that you have to work through. And Josh, as you hear him say that, what would you tell Skip?
You got to keep at it. You'll eventually find it. I mean, you got to have that I'm not going to quit attitude, because it's working for somebody, and you got to have that can do and just keep at it and just keep at it and just keep at it.
Yeah, I've often heard it said, Josh, that somewhere in there's a switch that's got to be clicked or flipped. Is that right? Is that a good way to describe it?
It can just be. It can be. I mean, I was sitting there. I built a form out for a client, and I kept going, I built this form. I can see it. I am looking at this form in your dashboard. I am looking at it. And I forgot to flip it on for the technicians. It was like, I spent an hour going, I built it. I'm looking at this thing, and I built it. And I just forgot to hit one button.
Okay. So even the geek has problems. Is that what you're telling me?
I was wrong once.
And the dog just agreed. Okay, that's good. So Sheryl, to end this up, how would you summarize the conversation we've had today here?
You know, I would just tell people that this is not any program's not a soft set thing in life. You start it, you work at it, you stay with it. It's something you can't procrastinate on. It will, and eventually become a part of your business if you stay on it, and it will be an intricate part. But again, don't quit at that point because you'll lose it. And we've all invested money in stuff that didn't work or that we couldn't get to work. But 99% of the problem is human. So that's where it's coming in. The software is usually right, maybe a glitch or something, but it's still at this point takes a human to work it.
That's it. And one of the things you told me before, that a computer is just a great big filing cabinet, Jerry. As long as you know how that filing cabinet works, it can do anything you want to do. Do you remember telling me that, Sheryl?
Yeah, and that's all it is. I mean, you put junk in, you get junk out. But that's all it is. It's a mind. I mean,
Yep.
when you sit and try to think of something, there's circuits there that goes around and finds your answer. That's what a computer does.
Yep.
And
And
if you don't feed your mind and feed the computer, you're screwed.
Yep. And Barbara just put a comment in there, and I think it's great. Barbara's on vacation right now, and here she is listening to our broadcast. So, Barbara, glad to have you aboard. And she says, absolutely right. The capacity of any software the techs and office staff use needs to be kept up with, or it won't work. So, thanks a lot for your comment. And Chuck Roydhouse says, that's why it's called working on your business and not in your business. Okay. So, Brandi, what would be your summation of what you've heard here today?
Well, I just remember that because I hate the victim mentality, which is what you see those people on Facebook like acting like a victim. Just remember that these companies work for you, right? You're paying them a monthly fee. And with Service Titan in particular, you're paying them a very hefty monthly fee. So don't give up. Make them work with you until the program is working the way you want it to work. We set up meetings. We kind of stopped now because we don't need them as much, but there for a long time, we were setting up meetings with the CSM team and just making them meet with us every week. And then we went to bi-weekly. That's not something that they advertise that they do, but we're like, look, you're going to do this until we are satisfied that everything works the way we want it. And we know everything that we want to know. They work for you.
So be like Brandi and learn to be a pain in the side or the rear end of the vendor until they make you happy. Is that what I'm hearing, Brandi?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. That's good. Josh, what about you? What would you summarize today's conversation as?
I would say perseverance and read the instructions.
Okay. So my summation of what we've talked about here is number one, pick the software that fits your business. You don't need a massive software. And I know one or two companies that are doing this right now. They have a software that has a much higher capability than that business needs, and they're paying way too much a month and they're not getting the benefit of it. So that's one thing. Number two is don't assume it's plug and play. You got to do your investigation of this software and talking to people that can give you realistic things. One of the things that I heard Bart Ogden share years ago is you've always got to make sure of where do you want to go with this software? What's it going to do for you? And that's what you got to be aware of. You got to be aware the software is going to have changes and modifications. You're going to get updates, and it's going to disturb your life. It's just like I sit here, and all of a sudden, Windows decides that it's going to update my computer. And what I do is it just slows everything down until it finally updates. And sometimes it even updates and then it burps and hiccups and it's got to update again. I went through this 3 times this week of my PC having to be updated. So be aware. Reach out for expertise, okay? And that's one of the things we offer here. We got 2 people that realistically can help you make this decision. Skip Creswell just said it key here. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. And Skip, you're dead on the money. Let me tell you something. That lady in the right-hand bottom corner, that's the squeakiest wheel I've ever known in my, look at Josh laugh. She'll squeak at you. It's like I said, and she does it with clients. That's why I tell them she's meaner than Jerry is by far. When you talk about who's the meanest on here, hey, she's the one.
I just have high expectations and you have to meet them. But back to Skip real quick. Shout out to Skip and Josh, because one fact that a lot of people watching the show may not know is they were some of the very first implementers and users of Service Titan in our industry. And so they have seen it evolve massively, and they kind of help make it what it is today.
Correct. And you talk about Skip. I can remember sitting in Skip's office several years ago, and Skip's used every software in the business. Okay, I'm really serious. He's used them all. And he started asking about what people were going to. And the next thing I knew, he had taken on this software, and I didn't hear him crying out for help to other people. He was diligent with it. He stayed with it, and he pretty well conquered it. But as you're hearing, he's still having problems. So, Sheryl, have I got your closing thoughts for today?
Well, basically, my closing thoughts is look at what you buy, number one. Look at the time you've got to invest in it. Take the time and make it work. It is a tool. It's not your enemy. It's literally a tool. So,
Okay.
so use it as a tool.
That's it. Brandi, any closing thoughts from you today?
Nope, I think I already gave mine.
Okay, just making sure I don't. Hey, I'm not hanging up on you. You come back later and say I had something else to
I
say.
have more to say. Up.
Okay. So also Brandi's email address is on the screen. If you like her thoughts on this, hey, reach out to her. Josh, any final thoughts to you?
No, I'm very much that, hey, you need to read the instruction guy.
Yeah. So, what you can do is you can also contact Josh. Just don't expect sympathy. He's not a sympathetic guy. Okay. It's just his nature. But anyway, hey, we hope you have enjoyed today's episode. We hope you have got value out of today's episode. Believe me, this is the most comments we have seen on an episode in quite a while. And we really appreciate the comments, the likes, all those kind of things. And if you would, hey, share this out to other people. We do this to help you and other people in the home services arena. And with that, we'll close out this week's episode, and we'll look forward to seeing you next Friday, 12 noon Eastern time, as always, on the CVC Home Service Success Network. Have a fantastic weekend, and